All right, welcome to the Q4 2025 Digital Marketing Quarterly Trends Report. We've been doing this since 2010. We publish these quarterly trends reports to help marketers like you make sense of what's happening across digital advertising channels like retail media, paid search, and social advertising. You may know your campaign metrics backwards and forwards, but industry benchmarks can help provide some context to what you're seeing on your end and understand what's happening in the broader market. We aggregate performance data from all of our clients to surface patterns that matter to marketers like you. And in today's case, over a trillion ad impressions are part of this analysis. You can see these numbers to compare. You can use these numbers to compare against your own results and use them as an input to inform how you plan, buy, manage, and optimize your campaigns. All right, let's dive in, see what happened in Q4 2025. Before we get started, a little housekeeping here. Of course, you're in the Zoom webinar platform. You're in listen only mode. That just means that just myself and Tyler can speak. If you do have any questions, use the Q&A button within the platform. If we have time, we'll get to them. We don't always have time, but if we do, we'll get to some of your questions. And the biggest technical question we hear is people have trouble with the sound. Of course, if you're on computer, maybe switch to phone. If you're on phone, switch to computer. If you need to, just restart. That usually solves most issues. And not only are we doing this webinar and do this webinar every quarter, but we also put out a report. And that report is now live on the Skai site. The good news is everyone on this webinar, you will get an email recap with a link to download that report. You can share it with your friends and family. It's really good showcasing of the key metrics and the key trends that happened in the quarter. My name's Josh Dreller. I'm the Senior Director of Content Marketing here at Skai. I'm with Tyler today from Barcode Group. Tyler, how you doing?
I'm doing well, JD. Thank you.
Tell
So
me.
I'm, yeah. So I'm a retail media manager at the Barcode Group. Appreciate everyone coming and joining the webinar, and JD for you allowing me to tag along on part of this webinar. The Barcode Group is an end-to-end partner for brands looking to grow across brick and mortar retail and digital marketplaces. We broker brick and mortar retail relationships and drive marketplace strategy and advertising, all backed by analytics and over 30 years of experience. So if that sounds like anything that you need, please reach out and we'll be happy to help.
Thank you, Tyler. Great agency, and thank you for joining us today. It's going to be great having your insight into what we're seeing here within our metrics. All right. If you like this content, we have a lot of great content on the Sky site. Not only do we do the quarterly trends reports, we do consumer surveys. We've got this great Gen AI consumer survey, 1,000 US consumers on their attitudes towards using Gen AI in the shopping journey. You'll see that come out in the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, our State of Retail Media report that we do now in its fifth edition. Really great stuff. You'll find out all sorts of things. In fact, there's a webinar too that we're doing on February. You should definitely join. You can go to sky.io, go to our events under our resources navigation, or just go directly to sky.io events. You'll hear what top performing brands are different. This year we embedded leaders versus laggards segmentation so that you can see like what the best folks, the people that are leading, that are getting the best results, that are investing the most, what they're doing, all sorts of cool stuff. And it's all hosted by my colleague and friend, Nick Weinheimer, our Chief Strategy Officer. Really interesting stuff in this year's report. It's actually available now. Feel free to go download a copy, but check out the webinar. Nick has a really good lens on what's going on in the industry and can interpret some of these results for you. About today's report, though, over a trillion impressions, as I mentioned in the intro, nearly 9 billion clicks, nearly $9 billion in spending across 5 quarters. So we can do that year-over-year analysis. In order to be part of this analysis, clients would have had to have been on the Sky platform for at least 15 months so that we can do kind of a same store analysis of growth. All right, what's going on today? We're going to start with a dive into Q4 2025 commerce media and some long-term views of those commerce media channels. Then a deep dive into retail media. We'll touch on some paid search and social advertising trends that we picked up. And then we'll get into what we've been doing now for almost a year, every quarter, looking into AI. I mean, As you know, it's moving so quickly. We wanted to make sure that we delivered every quarter what's happening and some news and notes. We know marketers are generally heads down on things, so they can miss some of the cool stuff that's happening, some of the interesting reports that are happening. So let's get into it. Moment. All right. Before we start, some milestones that you may have missed here in 2025. First of all, digital now accounts for 75% of worldwide ad spend for the first time. When I started back in 2001, digital was called interactive. It wasn't even called digital at the time. It was 3% of spend. So we've come a far way here in 25 years. Also, big change we saw in the last few years with artificial intelligence. AI overviews now appear in 18% of Google search engine results pages. Tyler, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it means that 1 in 6 searches last year had AI results, and that obviously is definitely filled heavily on the back end. And for marketers, that changes a lot because previously, when a user would search something, it was around 15% of the time they would click on the first option, where that number is decreased dramatically with AI results. And so it's shifting to the point now that brands need to look into making sure that they're the most reputable brand in whatever AI tool specifically is giving the results. So Gemini for Google, that they're the top result for them.
And we know ads are coming. They're already starting
Yeah,
so it's just changing the game again for search
absolutely.
marketing. Also, Walmart, you may have, seen this, the $2.3 billion Vizio acquisition, and you may have wondered, why is Walmart buying this? But it really speaks to where retail media is going, more video format, Tyler.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean it. So according to Walmart, this will get them into 25 to 30% of U.S. households, and obviously they're going after Amazon Prime Video, where they've really taken a lot of steps in CTV in the last few years, and Walmart's trying to catch up. But it also means that on the brand side of things, it gives a lot more opportunities for you to be able to use CTV on more than just kind of those traditional channels and branch out and be able to push your Walmart business further.
And think about the signals that Walmart will
Yeah.
get based on, how certain customers, what their watching patterns are. I mean, that will help them match ads better, match product recommendations better. So all around seems
Absolutely.
like a big move. Amazon has Prime, so it's already pulling those signals in. Also, in terms of 9 out of 10 incremental ad dollars now. So any additional dollars that marketers are getting are going to digital platforms, not just dollars, pesos, yen, euros. Social media, in terms of all that incremental dollar, those incremental dollars, social is capturing 40% social advertising. And retail media here, just 6, 7 years ago was just a little seed growing. Now, in just a couple of years, one out of every $5 of digital ad spend will be going of new digital ad spend will be going to retail media. All right, let's dive into commerce media. For those of you that are kind of new to the Sky universe, commerce media for us are the kind of retail media, paid search, social advertising, all working together in the purchase path to drive users to sale. And so let's start with retail media. Long-term trend here, as you can see, Tyler, just going up, up, up. This starts 2019 Q1 since we started tracking retail media, and now just has just a big jump here in Q4 2025. Anything pop off this page for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an explosion overall that we've seen just across the market, but with 13x spend and 11x clicks since 2019, there's a lot of room to scale. Most brands probably aren't spending 13 times as much as they were in Q1 of 2019. So it means that there's a lot of room to scale, but it also means that there's a decent amount of room for you to fall behind. If budgets and your overall marketing strategy isn't closely aligned to this, competitors are going to be able to come in and take some of that market share from you.
And what's driving that is the efficient pricing. I mean, look at this, 6 years. We haven't even seen a bump almost, all staying within a relatively similar period. We saw during the pandemic, it dropped because there was just so much jumping onto the platform that hadn't been saturated yet. Is this what you're seeing as well with your clients?
Yeah, it's been consistent to where obviously there's fluctuations and it varies a little bit by category, but overall, it retail media has been a very consistent channel. And if you take into account inflation, it's actually gotten less expensive than what it was back in 2019. So it's been a great channel to continue to grow. And there's just, I mean, how many things can you really say since 2019 has gone down in price? There's really not much. So being able to use this as a main driving point for a lot of advertisers is perfect given the price point of it.
And here's a good moment for me to stop and talk about how to use industry benchmarks. Of course, somebody's probably watching this now and saying, "Hey, I pay $3, $4 on average, even for my lowest stuff." But in aggregate across all of our clients, this really just paints a picture. I would look less at the actual dollars and more of just this line, because for clients that are, spending, higher than normal, they're probably in that range across this entire time versus, those spending much less. So really just the line, the flatness of the line over 6 years is really a way to interpret and see what you're doing on your side. As we look at paid search, also just, I mean, it's one of the stalwarts of the industry, just mature, just even after 25 years, just you can see it just still keeps going up and up. And we can see the good thing is when you see, and let's talk about these index charts. So this doesn't necessarily mean that clicks are, less than spend, but the way that we do this here is at the first quarter of analysis, we normalize to one. So really just look at each bar, even though we have two bars and two different metrics on this chart, really look at just one color at a time as it goes up. But the good thing about having both bars in this chart is that you can see that generally clicks and spend kind of work at the same path. And you can see that in previous years that clicks actually outpace spend. But as we got into to 2024 and 2025, you can see that trend has changed. And that trend has changed because of this, because of CPC. It had been kind of like retail media, very, very flat. And then as we said, 2024, for some reason, we think we know some of the reasons why for that. Anecdotally, there's a lot of different mini reasons why things are going this way, but certainly paid search, it's an auction-based medium like the other channels. So as costs go up, it's because competition is going up and people are finding more value to invest in paid search and more need to invest in paid search. So if you're looking at this and you're looking at your own programs and you've seen that CPC has gone up from a practitioner, from a guy that does this day after day, Tyler, what can search marketers do, to combat these rising costs?
Yeah, it is a reality. It's a little bit more of a mature channel than retail media, so we're kind of seeing where it's getting more competitive at this point. And it's important for marketers to be a little bit more strategic, going after specific keywords, making sure tests have limits, have guardrails, and all of that, so that they're not just spending where you're not seeing any sort of results from it. And then additionally, with that, being strategic, being quick to adapt, the entire market of search is going to be changing here in the near future. JD, you already slightly mentioned it with ChatGPT's soft announced that they're going to release ads here in the coming months. And I'm sure as soon as that goes, Gemini will start doing the same on Google's side and all of that. And this is all going to start to kind of lump into that bucket where it's going to be something where we have to be strategic now, but we also have to be quick to adapt because this landscape will likely be quickly shifting in the next year and change.
And my mantra on this stuff, being an old paid search guy, the only way to combat this stuff is at every angle. You've
Yeah.
got to, control your bids, control your bid strategies, set your match types the right way. Make sure that you're playing the quality score game and add rank so you get those incentives. So really, just paid search folks, you have a lot of work to do. And as Tyler said, the dynamics are going to be changing anyway. So get ready here. 2026, it begins. All right. And then into social. Social also just another standard of our industry. I mean, we know that, social advertising, paid search, retail media now make up about, 70 to 75% of all digital advertising spend. And these are where the channels where people are. It's so hard to reach consumers these days. They're fragmented all over the place. These three environments, search engines, social media, and retail locations. I mean, it's the place to reach people in a commerce universe. Um, and the good thing is CPMs have gone down. During the pandemic, they spiked because brands had to move money from offline channels to drive to the e-commerce to their e-commerce locations, but those have come down luckily, and you should see that in your own performance. There's still a lot of opportunity. We know that there's a lot of impressions on these platforms that are going unsold, so there should be ways to keep your costs down as you move forward. All right, let's get into retail media where really some interesting stuff happened. And I'm happy to say, when I looked at these results here early in January, the biggest jump in year over year growth in over 6, 7 years since, and you always expect huge growth with meteoric channels in their early stages. But the fact here now that we're 10 something years into retail media, growing 33%, clicks in line with that, click the rate up. I mean, what's the opportunity here? When you look at this chart, as you look at a lot of charts, I'm sure in your life, what is the opportunity that jumps off the page for you when you look at just these four key metrics?
Yeah, it's similar to the point kind of made earlier, but it's a channel that's very effective to grow. With spend going up essentially a third year over year, you would expect costs to at least partially go up that year over year, and we just didn't see that. In fact, they actually went down 1%. So there's quite a bit of room here that advertisers can grow, and additionally, kind of like I said before, on the inverse side, spend went up 33%. If you didn't, chances are your competitors did, and even more so. So it's one of those things where there's a lot of room that you can scale effectively, and it's a good opportunity to test bigger budgets. But it's also, in some senses, it's crucial because if you're not doing it, someone else will. They'll take that placement, and you'll start to lose market share because of it.
I've been in this industry for a while. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah, those are huge numbers for a mature channel.
And flat costs. In an auction-based environment, it goes against everything, and it goes what we saw in search and the growth of the search and the growth of social, the growth of programmatic. Any biddable channel. Eventually, the auction starts to saturate. Marketers are going after the same people or the same browsers, and just costs go up. So just wow, what a channel, what an awesome channel, and we saw in Q4 that if we look at the month over month growth, and this is year over year growth, but by month, we see, that 30% plus here. And what's interesting is, we've been hearing that the holiday season for marketers has been moving up the calendar for some time. Tyler, did your clients approach Q4 similarly?
Yeah, it was definitely where the clients that started earlier saw the most success. Ramping up in October, I mean, on the chart you can see it's up 38% from what it was last year. And actually had a few different brands where in Amazon's T12, they saw better results in the first 7 days before Cyber 5, the historical holiday weekend when used to be all of the holiday shopping was done. And now it's to the point where it's spread out that far. And even more so on some other retailers, like Walmart, Black Friday events started, I think, the second weekend in November. And it kind of, Black Friday is less been an actual day and more so as a season or a state of mind. So it's definitely, we saw more and more so that it's important to spread it out and to make sure that you're ramping up your overall presence as shoppers are starting their holiday shopping journey earlier and earlier each year.
As I think about this with traditional marketing, if you think brick and mortar, you're driving people to actual physical stores, there's a logistics component to compress
Mm-hmm.
your shopping things into a few days. You need more people, you need the stock up the route, You need stock bursting out of the scenes. You need big deals to bring people in so that they come to buy that one thing that they want to buy, but then they buy a bunch of other things as well as they're there. Just not happening with e-commerce. You can buy things at any time, of course, and it's so convenient. How far up the? I want to hear from the people watching here. Put in a Q&A. How far up the season are we going to? Do you think the season will move? September? I mean, August? I mean, are we going to start seeing Black Friday deals next month? I mean, what's your thoughts on that? But certainly, retail media marketers are taking advantage early. Here's an eye chart for you. You can see the stuff in the QTR report, so I'm going to skip through it if you want to go down to the nitty gritty. But it's just really indicative of what the other KPIs that we saw. Now, retail media ROAS. So once again, benchmark, your ROAS will differ, but across all of our clients, we saw this kind of dip in efficiency, performance efficiency in 2025. And then it finally came back up over $6 at the end of the quarter. Is this how 2025 looked for you and your clients?
Yeah, it pretty closely aligns. I think from a market as a whole standard, Q2 and Q3, we were in the summer and overall customer sentiment about where the market was going was definitely weak or hesitant to say the least. There was, with tariffs and all of that, there was a little bit of uncertainty in the market. And as we kind of transitioned into Q4, a lot of those fears subsided a little bit. And we saw quite a bit of a bounce back, especially the last 2 months going into November and December, where year over year we saw very strong return on ad spends kind of make up for where they were set up. And it leads to the point that if possible, for marketers and brands as a whole, it's important to set up more or less KPI guardrails for yourself. If August and July are a bit slow, like we saw this year, you might not necessarily have to get to your set advertising budget for the month, but then save it for when you get into Q4. And if we see quite a jump in overall performance, able to put some of that extra spend towards those times when customers are converting, it just is more in a more effective use of your money and is able to help you kind of scale when customers want to instead of more or less forcing the issue and trying to force sales in the middle of the year or during any sort of slow period when, for whatever reason, stuff might be just a little bit slower than what it is later.
That's a hard way to manage the budget. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
people, I
From
don't,
from an advertiser's perspective, it's great. It's the finance team that's going to come after you if if you can't define exactly what you're looking for.
well, I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it. But of course, just put it in the times when you're going to get your best performance. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a question come in. I thought might be good for us to stop and chat about. How do you expect agentic commerce, checking out through things like ChatGPT to affect retail media traffic and clicks and therefore spend? So we talked about how it's affecting the SERP for search advertisers, but having agentic commerce, how do you think that's going to affect performance? Um, um, I mean, my thought is it's gonna vary. It's gonna be, how well you can handle this new change. I mean, it's that's what we do as marketers, right? We handle big shifts in the market. Any thoughts on that? On how you think this is going to come down?
Yeah, I agree fully. I think it's going to be basically another channel that we have to basically do SEO, but won't be called SEO. I guess it'll be called AIO or I don't know what. Someone else smarter than me will figure that out. But it's just another channel that's going to have to be managed. And I think it'll depend too on where some of these agentic AI tools end up leading customers. I'm sure there'll probably be some sort of partnerships in some senses where one might lead to a specific retailer, where others like Gemini might just lead directly to a D2C site. So I think it'll shift the landscape overall, and it'll just be JD, like you said, making sure that we're quick to shift and being able to adapt to effectively one more way that as marketers, we need to optimize our overall setup.
And the thing that and my colleague Nick, he says that um, AI is a channel and a layer. It's like it's going to be
Yeah.
its own channel, ad channel, but it's also permeating everywhere. AI isn't one thing. We talk about marketers be ready for AI, but there's like publisher tools like Sparky and Rufus, and then there's like what's happening with the SERP, and then what's happening with shopping, Shop GPT, and then how consumers are using. I mean, there's just so many different ways. You just have to be ready for those shifts. So whoever asked that question, great question. And I think the overall thing is it depends. Unfortunately, but it's certainly going to be, you're going to have to see that shift and deal with it very quickly. All right, let's speed up a little bit here so we can get to the rest of the content. Um, we track spend across Amazon, across Walmart, but also the dozens and dozens of other smaller retail media networks. Sorry for those of you that are watching from those networks that you're in the other category, but it's very interesting for us to see. And what we saw in mid 2025 was the other category, spend against the other category was actually dropping as a share of wallet. And that most, we know already most of the money is going to Amazon and then Walmart and then everyone else. But we were just concerned. I mean, from my sense, looking at the market as a whole, it seems to me that retail media would be a very healthy channel if the other retail media networks, the smaller ones, were actually a bigger share of wallet. So it's good to see that bounce back in 24. And so, Tyler, how do you guide your clients when they ask, some of these about these other retail media networks that don't start with an A or a W?
Yeah. I think in a vacuum, it makes the most sense to be able to expand in those channels. But the first thing that has to be figured out is if those channels are on the organic side already optimized. If the PDPs are up to standard, if you're compliant, if you have all your I's dotted and T's crossed on those retailers, then it makes a lot of sense to be able to push some advertising on that side. But as crucial as advertising is, advertising is only as effective as the actual listings themselves. So we see a lot of times where a brand might see the new shiny object of a retailer and want to go all in. And within a week of launching, they're putting ads, even though they don't necessarily have it all set up. So I think it's extremely important to explore those channels, but make sure that you're fully optimized there before putting ad spend behind it. Otherwise, it makes more sense to put ad spend behind those channels that you're probably already optimized and have fully running and full fledged and have the backing of everything that you need.
That's a good point. There's probably a lot of value in a portfolio approach, but if you're going to send it and the traffic there, it's not going to be optimal. It doesn't make sense. Another question that came in is the QTR data global or US? It's global. We have big global clients. We also have big, US clients that are globally focused. So yes, this data is across all regions. In terms of the breakdown across retail media ad formats. I mean, you can see once again, these are index charts, so it doesn't mean that all, more spend went to DSP than went to sponsored products. We know sponsored products is the bulk of spending. So just when you read these index charts, make sure you see that. But big jump in DSP year over year, Q4, 72% more spend in Q4 2025 versus Q4 2024. I mean, Tyler, we talked about this in the prep. What's your guidance about DSP? Tell me, what do you tell your clients about DSP?
Yeah, honestly, do more. We have some internal contacts at Amazon, and they kind of let us know that 2025 was a year that internally Amazon was going to push DSP. And clearly, based on this graph and these numbers, it was successful. It's become a very profitable channel for a lot of brands, and it really makes sense to dive into DSP more so than it ever has in the past.
It's amazing, and also the CPC. I mean, that's the thing. If you look at the coral color here, that's sky coral, you can see dramatic shift, into Q4, and we dropped this. And look, DSP dropped from 165 $1.65 in Q3 to an average of $1.28. Once again, your spend will vary, but across all clients, we can see the drop. That meant the gap between product listings, sponsored products, and DSP is just 15 cents, excuse me. Yeah, 50, yeah, dropped. Okay, it's 15 cents. That's wild. I mean, do you see the gap narrowing on costs on your side?
Absolutely. it's getting a lot closer, especially into Q4 as the graph shows, to where the barrier to entry on DSP isn't necessarily the cost difference anymore between sponsored products and DSP. It's getting to the point where they're very close. Amazon also mentioned that on the back end, they're making improvements in terms of they're trying to make it a better customer journey, overall targeting can improve and all of that. And clearly, based on the price points, those initiatives on their end have worked. And it's just becoming a lot more cost effective than what it used to be, even at the end of last year, to where we are now. It's a much more effective channel.
Display is back, baby. Awesome. All right. We'll just skip through the Amazon metrics. Once again, you can see those in their report. They, of course, reflect very closely to the overall retail media metrics because of just Amazon's presence within within retail media. Walmart, we saw sponsored products, sponsored brands, which kind of stay at around the same amount. And we do track sponsored brands. We just think it's a really interesting part of the ecosystem. And then cost too. There's still some really valuable low cost inventory that you can find on Walmart Connect. Still just such a huge network, such a lot of value there. And you know, you can find some good efficient costs there. By industry, once again, I'm not gonna go through this eye chart with you. I know it makes a lot of it's important if you're in these niches, you know how those niches are actually doing. Question came in, um, and uh, and CPCs as well, so you can check those out in the report. All right, let's get into the other two commerce media channels: paid search and paid social. Once again, just going to touch on some of these things. Paid search, 7% up. You know, for this channel that's been around, it's the most mature digital channel. The bulk of the biggest piece of the pie in the digital advertising spend. The fact that it's still going up 7%, but we saw, of course, the CPCs. That was kind of more of the story in 2025. In terms of accounts across Sky, as you can see, some accounts decrease their spend a little, some increase their spend a lot. This is kind of what we see quarter over quarter. Month-wise, we also saw kind of October surge, as we saw with retail media. So that just shows it's not just isolated to retail media advertisers. We're seeing holistically marketers are thinking about that. And then, of course, you can see more about spend and CPC in the report. Performance Max, the AI format of search, is something we've been tracking now for some time. The interesting thing here is that over 60% now of our accounts, over 65% actually, are now using Performance Max. Something early on, some accounts were or clients weren't sure about. I mean, you've turned over your bidding to AI, you've turned over your ad RSAs, the way you put your ad copy together, AI, and now Performance Max. I see it, as I talk to search marketers, it's a pretty much an isolated tactic. They use it for certain things, maybe coming out of the box with a brand new product release or something. They're not sure what the right keywords are, where they might use Performance Max, or they turn over some of their smaller campaigns to Performance Max so they can focus on the bigger ones. However, using it's very interesting, and we're seeing spend grow too. So they always say marketers vote with their wallets, and the fact that Performance Max spend is just going up, adoption is going up, just tells me that they're doing the right things for it over there at Google. Social 2, another mature channel, up almost 10% in spend, which is really good. Of course, we saw that surge from the pandemic, and it's persisted here. TikTok, we love to look at TikTok here. TikTok adoption on our platform reached 50% of more than 50% accounts. You see this big jump. I think some marketers were just worried what would happen should they really be focusing on this channel and investing in it, building creative for it. Weren't sure what would happen with this. When you think about commerce media and when the commerce ecosystem, Tyler, where does TikTok fit into this part of the plan?
So TikTok it started its life as pretty much every social media does, as skewing towards a younger audience. But as time goes on, the overall demographics get a little bit older, and eventually it'll get to the point where most age groups are very prevalent on the platform, and I think we're heading towards that. So while it might not have been a channel that made sense for everyone, say a year or two ago, it's increasingly becoming a channel that advertisers need to consider because it's not just kids on it anymore. It's the middle-aged generations, and soon, like you said this in the prep call, there'll be grandmas doing TikTok dances within a year or so. So, or there already are, but even more. So it's a channel that's important to consider and make sure you're not just falling behind because when it first came out, it skewed young. That's changing quickly.
Yeah, I remember, my kids when they were young, it was before it became what it was, with these video shorts, it was just a sing, they would lip sync to music videos. That's where it started. That's the songs. That's where it started. And to where it's come, it's just amazing. I'm more of a YouTube Shorts guy myself, but TikTok's a good platform. Question came in just previous about the retail media offsite display. Someone asked, does that include a DSP? Does that include offsite CTV? If it's bought through Amazon, if it's bought through DSP, it would be included in those metrics. So it's more of the mechanism rather than the format. And we saw earlier, just last week, the deal to the U.S. deal for TikTok has closed. So all those, if you were worried, should we be investing? Should I hire an agency for just for TikTok? Should I be building out massive creative and strategy and planning my budgets for TikTok? You can finally kind of settle down and stay and get ready and kind of go more all in. And so it'll be interesting to see moving forward if that changes the dynamics in terms of spend ratio to TikTok. And then by social spend and CPM, and then once again, um, you can see that in the report. All right. My favorite part of the presentation, like I said, we've been doing this now for a year. AI is not letting up, unlike other technology cycles that kind of go in these spurts where it grows quickly and then there's a bit of a pause and then there's a growth and then there's a bit of a pause. AI is just not doing that. It's in fact, if anything, it's speeding up. So there's not going to be an opportunity for you as the marketer to kind of sit back and say, okay, now we know what's going on. This is what we can do. It's going to be all on the fly. It's going to be all moving on the fly. So I think marketing organizations are going to have to really, really change the way they do things, the way they think about things, maybe just for this channel, just for artificial intelligence and the way it's impacting everything. But it's such a layer too, like my colleague Nick said, that you're just going to have to figure things out without knowing all the information. And that's an uncomfortable place to be, personal life, let alone professional, and spending millions of dollars and more, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars. And that's just going to have to be. In terms of Q4 2025, I think we're going to look back at this period and that quarter and see that it's going to be somewhat of the tipping point for the agentic commerce shift. And I say that because of what we saw reported by our folks over at salesforce.com and others in the news. AI and agents drove $262 billion. That's a B. That's not an M, that's a B in global holiday revenue. That's 20% of all retail sales were somehow influenced by AI. Traffic from search channels like ChatGPT and Perplexity doubled year over year to retailers. Shoppers from AI search also converted 9 times more than social media referrals. So just the intent of coming, from those are the big kind of takeaway from me. I mean, the fact that 20% of all retail sales were influenced by AI is a huge number, but just the fact that the traffic itself converts higher. And the retailers, and once again, AI is more than just ChatGPT, right? Rufus Sparky. Retailers with AI agents saw 59% higher sales growth. That's big numbers, folks. So we know that these tools are, and I've been using Rufus now, and go check out Sparky, and I find it's been really actually really good, more so than just the regular search bar. And then even just AI using it on the back end to handle things like return shipping updates was up 142%. So AI, once again, all parts, it's just permeating all parts of this thing. Um, how could this change? You're looking at this number. Tyler, how is this going to change the way that marketers invest this year?
It's going to change everything, honestly. I mean, obviously these numbers are huge and they're absolutely massive compared to what they were last year. And I would imagine we'll probably be saying a very similar thing this time next year. Like it's not going away. It's not slowing down either. Like the overall adoption of using these different AI tools is just considerably getting bigger. And we already mentioned it with ChatGPT rolling out ads in the coming months. Um, these tools are going to just keep changing, and we're kind of in that early phase where with search and Google back in the day, where it was kind of this unknown and how quickly is it going to grow and expand. We're in that spot, but it's just going to be critical for brands and advertisers to basically try to stay on top of it as much as you can. Watch the news, follow the talking heads on LinkedIn and all of that are in the know on some of these AI changes because it's going to be a dramatic shift and it's going to be very rapid. And if you're not paying attention, I think it's going to be extremely easy to fall behind.
And I think we're just, I mean, we're just scratching the surface on how something like
Yeah.
chat can help you in the shopping. I mean, it's so blunt now. It just like shows you a bunch of things. I feel like there's going to be, comparison tools and things where you can like favorite, recommendations and then go back to them, track recommendations for pricing so that, hey, if this drops below $100, notify me or go ahead and just buy it. I mean, I just think there's just the way AI is going to impact just that part, the consumer way. And like I said, we've got a great infographic coming out from 1,000 U.S. consumers that we surveyed that really kind of shows where this stuff's going. We're still a bit nascent. Folks in the digital advertising industry, I mean, we're of course at the front edge of all this. There's some people in our survey that don't even know about ChatGPT, had never heard of ChatGPT. It's a small percentage, but still. So we have to understand that that's still happening. But of course, you would imagine that the bulk of where the affluent spend is are people that are more digitally savvy and using these tools. So interesting the way that things are happening. But the other side of it is too, and when ChatGPT, burst on the scene, and a lot of people thought, oh, my job's in danger. And of course, the good mantra is you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose it to someone who knows it better than you, and that should spur you to really be using these tools and get your AI fluency high. But there was a report from MIT that kind of looked at this, and let me just show you some of the key takeaways here. You'll notice in this section that I have a lot of AI images, so they're kind of wild here, but I figured it'd be fun to fill this section with AI images. But here's what we learned from this report. This was on Fast Company in November. If you want to go look at it, just search for the headline here. But here's some of the key takeaways that I got. First of all, tasks rather than jobs. So it's replacing things and that people do without the roles yet. So that's a good sign. I'd like to see that continue, where workers just move, shift. Think of the pie chart of what you do in the day. They're moving more of the rote tasks over to automation AI, and then they're spending more time doing the important stuff. Of course, it's impacting the junior roles first, more so than more the senior roles for those of you that are knowledge workers. That's good to see. But it also showed that AI is moving faster and growing faster in these knowledge work, writing, analysis, research, coordination. It's moving faster than anyone even thought. So we will see some erosion at that level too, unfortunately. And the only thing that's really holding back, and this was kind of the final piece to the article, is that while AI is capable of replacing a lot of things, it's the organizations yet that aren't sure what to do, which I think is a good thing. You don't want to just go, oh, I've got this tool and let a bunch of people go. We're going to see that. But as I said before, I hope to see, and that's what I'm seeing with our organization here at Skai. We're figuring out how to make each employee better, faster, stronger, with AI rather than trying to figure out how to phase them out. And one thing I do know that having talked to a lot of marketers and a lot of people is that every marketing organization is handling this AI transformation differently. Tyler, do you want to tell us a little bit about how Barcode Group is looking at this thing and what you're doing about it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think honestly, these key takeaways really nails it on the head of kind of how we're implementing it. It's a huge unlock for us in terms of time savings. I like to look at it as it's AI right now is kind of like an intern or an assistant or something in that regard where it can do a lot of the reporting that might take up a lot of time previously, can do data analysis on a pretty quick pace and at a very, I guess, accurate level. But you're not going to just put something in AI and immediately just that's it. That's the finished product. Send it to a brand, send it to a retailer, whatever it may be. There's going to be mistakes. There's going to be some different like errors and tweaks that you want to make on it. But what it does unlock for us is it takes some of those mundane tasks that take a lot of time and aren't necessarily strategic choices, but it's just you need to put the data together to be able to make those choices and does that for you so that you do have that extra time to be able to talk about strategy, to be able to kind of have a little bit more of an in-depth discussion about long-term planning, all of that, where before you were so strapped with time because you were building out some of these reports or you were digging into data, that these AI tools can really help streamline that whole process. And it's at the end of the day, just another intelligent, I guess, brain more or less that you can bounce ideas off of.
And as we talked about in the prep, your clients, they don't want you, spending all your time in Excel trying to figure out a
Yeah,
formula, or, trying to, pretty something up. They want you to make money for them. So if AI can
exactly.
there, we're going to embrace it all. Question came from the AI data. Where is it from? I'll show you. The holiday shopping season data was from Salesforce.com article and some others that reported it. And then this, as I showed you, you can see the articles. It was covered. This MIT study was covered many places. I thought the Fast Company article did a great job. The one thing about the MIT study is they're setting up a group, so they're going to report on this. Over time so that they can see, what's happening. So you can actually go to the MIT spot and see some of the dig and some more of the data there. All right. Talking about AI, we have AI here at Skai, of course, Celeste AI. For those of you that are Skai customers, you know about this. For if you're not, do a demo. You can see it. It's really cool. And we've been tracking now for a few quarters the kinds of prompts that are on Celeste. And what we saw in the first quarter of analysis is that there was a lot of individual things like troubleshooting and using the platform. And then we saw it shift as our clients started to use it more and figure out what it was best for. And you can see where it sits. And that's kind of, if you look at Q3 and the types of queries we're talking about, I don't see individual queries, but I see a report of 10, across the grouping of tens of thousands of queries from our clients from the quarter. And so you can see now where we're kind of sitting. And Tyler, your team uses Celeste. Can you share some of, your experience and your team's experience using our tool?
Mm-hmm. So Celeste is, I mean, it's similar to what we were just talking about with some of these AI tools. And for a lot of it, the AI tool I was talking about was Celeste. But a great example of this is I have a teammate that needed to put together a yearly report for a client, and has a bunch of products and obviously just a ton of data pulling for an entire year's worth of information. And she was able to go in and use Celeste, and it pulled pretty much all of the data she needed within 1 to 2 hours, solely just those prompts that would have historically last year and before would have taken 1 to 2 days kind of thing. And that extra time, she was able to really dive into the data and take some of those strategic notes from it and some of those changes that need to be made instead of just spending all the time on reporting. So it kind of like I was saying, just for AI as a whole, Celeste really gives you that unlock of here's the data that you're requesting, and then you can take it and run with strategy. And you can even leverage Celeste itself for strategic input. And it's quite useful as that as well. So it's definitely a tool that streamlines just about everything, especially when you have as many different data points as marketers do.
Thank you for that. I know a lot of clients are getting some good results out of it. So I don't use it
Yeah.
myself. I just know from secondhand, but it seems like your experience is kind of in line with what others were seeing. All right, let me
Yeah.
do a quick time check. Okay, we're getting close to the time. So quickly fly through this, but you got to go check this out. If you're a retail media marketer, you got to check out our State of Retail Media report. Like I said, fifth time doing it. This time we partner with Stratably. They provide a lot of great information and a lot of great guidance for this. It's free on our site, complimentary. Please go to our website, go to resources. You'll see it if you hover over our resource nav. As the thing pops up, it's right there on the right top right side. But we asked a lot of things: budget allocation, performance, retail media network usage, et cetera. But we did ask some more AI questions this year than we did in previous years for obvious reasons. And I'm just going to fly through them real quickly here. So this is what we're seeing across and um, how retail media marketers themselves answered these questions. So we asked them, are they using it in their retail media programs? Two-thirds are using it. I thought that was actually low. I thought it would be actually higher than that, but I can understand that. I'm sure by the end of this year, when we do this again next year, it'll be higher. And then, are they getting gains? And you see this kind of bell curve, and that is not shocking to me. I would imagine some are getting some great use out of it. Some people are not seeing any impact. And then, of course, little noticeable, et cetera, et cetera. It just makes sense. This would be where things are right now. Um, when we ask them how they're using it, where they're using it, it's really and why they're using it. It's for efficiency. That's the thing. And we've seen some of these other things like targeting, performance. We know these are going to go up as we get further through, but certainly for now, as even as you mentioned, going from 2 days to 2 hours, using it for efficiency makes a lot of sense. And Tyler, feel free to jump in at any time here. Um, and then what parts of the campaign life cycle, where are they using it? We looked, we asked them, where are you using it now? Where do you plan, where are you going to be by the end of 2026? And we can see, interesting enough, it's being used right now in the creative side, and that's going to drop a little. I think that makes sense for retail media. I think if you're social, that's going to go way up. That people are going to be making videos full. They already are, which they already are, and making other ad units from AI. And then you can see where we're going. Once again, all this stuff will be in the report that you can check out already live on our website. What are some of the concerns? What are some of the barriers to using this more? Um, right at the top, it's the human piece, lack of technical expertise or resources, less so. And the number two is accuracy, reliability. When you use a public AI like a ChatGPT or Claude and you put your report in, you don't know if it's hallucinating what's happening. When you use something more purpose built, like within your own tools that you're using now, like when you're within the Google Suite, the Gemini, across Google Docs or Celeste within Sky, you're going to see better results. But as you can see, there are many concerns, but the big ones are more up here in the blue. You'll see, and a few concerns down below. This was the thing that I thought, and Tyler, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. When we asked them, how comfortable or do you feel about agentic, meaning literally letting AI take action for you? And the four pieces across the different areas of the campaign life cycle were just using it for insights only, um, getting recommendations, but require some approval to enact those recommendations, actually allowing autonomous with guardrails. Remember, autonomous is different than automation. Automation is like if it reaches, $6 ROAS, add $100. If the CPC, goes up, drop bids or whatever. Autonomous is literally where you're letting the system make decisions based on what it knows or what it thinks that you would want to do for it. So autonomous with guardrails, full autonomy, of course, very slow right now. And but of course, I mean, this just jumps off the page. What's Barcode's thoughts on the next step of agentic AI?
The blue column is exactly where I think we mostly are in the world of AI. I like to say right now we're kind of in the AOL phase of AI in terms of where we are and where it's going to be. It's a game changer. There's, like I mentioned, a ton of unlocks, but it's still kind of an intern. We can't just fully accept everything that we're doing. You're not just going to let an assistant go out and run the entire company kind of a thing with full autonomy, and you're not going to do the same thing with AI. There's a ton of benefits in using it, and just because there are potential issues with it, you doesn't mean that you shouldn't be using it. It helps you get 80% of the way there in the minute it takes to load something compared to the hours it would take you. So I think that's where we're at. I think as time goes on, as the technology progresses, this chart will slowly shift further and further to the right. But right now, that column in blue is exactly where I am, and the barcode group is pretty much as a whole. And we'll see how quickly we switch.
And you said in the prep, it really depends on how you use it. It's not, it's
Hmm.
unlike other things where there's like finite settings that you would change. AI is, an open canvas. So
Yeah,
the way
absolutely.
that happens, will impact everything. All right, we're almost at time. Let me kind of keep going here. Once again, you'll find these stuff in the report. In fact, these next three slides are really interesting. It kind of gives guidance and some tips on how you might react to what's happening in AI across retail media, paid search, and social ads. What's happening Q1? We got not a lot. We got Valentine's Day, Super Bowl, tax refund season should be big. That's always a big thing where big purchases come in. Looking for those large consumer electronics items, and of course spring refresh. It happens, between now and the summer. Couple things that I kind of recommend uh, for Q1. First of all, learn from the holiday season. We all say we're going to do an audit of what happened in Q4 and then use those learnings. I hate the term learnings, but use those learnings for 2026. But most people don't. But just do it this year. I know we're already at the end of near the end of January, but why not just set a plan? If you're a marketing organization leader, set an hour, maybe a lunch and learn, couple hours, so people can eat. They can look at some what happened in Q4, pull down some insights so everyone can share from that knowledge. Because you spend a lot, you might as well get some of that back. Um, and then using Q1 to test learn. You had something on this, Tyler,
Yeah,
about
just the point that Q1 is the cheapest quarter. So now is the time to test. Like JD said, take some of the learnings. You took the first step and joined this webinar, but keep going and take some tests, make some strategy changes. Now is the best time to do it. It's cheaper and it's a lot less of a high risk than doing it in Q3 or Q4 when every click matters that much more.
yeah, figure out what's working, what's not working. You've got some new things that you probably put in the budget. Figure it out now so that you can reap the benefits Q2 and Q3, and then of course Q4. QA we did while we're going. Again, the webinar, the State of Retail Media report, go download that, check it out. But also go to this webinar. Remember, if you sign up for the webinar, you can get a link to the recording, even if you can't make it. So sign up for the webinar. There's no problem there. And my colleague Dick is brilliant, and he'll take you through those results. Of course, the quarterly trends report, is up now. You can go get it at Skai. If you need to, just go to our blog. The first blog right now is the key takeaways from the report, which will give you a link to the report itself. We have a lot more research that you can check out. And then your feedback is important to us. There's a poll that just popped up. 2 questions. Please check it out. Let us know what you thought of this. And that's it, Tyler. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone has a great Q1 and the rest of the year. Cheers.